All right, it's the final chat before the final sleep. Let's F and eat.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the Locker Room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey, Locker Room. Yeah, we in the Locker Room. Texas talk. Yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize every angle's what we really do. We the source. We the pulse of the city too.
All right. One more sleep till draft day. Things as unclear as they've been this whole process. It is the Locker Room, #1 source for Texans daily digital content. I'm Landry Locker. You can hear me Monday through Friday, 10 to 2. Sports Radio 610 in the Odyssey app. Also the home of the Texans. You can see me right here. Subscribe, like. Appreciate all you for rolling through. It's been a hell of a ride. We started this channel before the start of last season. We've been consistent ever since, and now here we are, the day before the draft, one of the biggest drafts in Texans history, and we don't know what the hell's going on. We have absolutely no idea what the hell is going on with the Texans right now. We thought it was going to be Bryce Young back a couple of months ago. We then thought, well, it's going to be CJ Stroud. Then there was a Tyree Wilson phase. There's been a Will Anderson phase. And there's even been a Will Levis phase. And this is where we're at right now. Final mock draft by Daniel Jeremiah. Daniel Jeremiah, he mocks CJ Stroud and Will Anderson to the Texans. If you look back at my video history, I actually threw out this possibility a while ago, and the foundation of this possibility was very, very simple. If the Texans are arguing about CJ Stroud and Will Anderson, and the people who are on this side are hearing the opposing argument, and sometimes when you're arguing and you hear an opposing argument, you might not completely change your mind, but you get kind of sold on it. So in the scenario that Jeremiah is throwing out, if the CJ Stroud people, assuming there are CJ Stroud people, or the Will Anderson people, if they're arguing and they respect the other side, then maybe there's some sort of compromise. I would still be surprised to see CJ Stroud as the pick. I would be very surprised. I know there's kind of a little bit of a buzz right now. I actually just got back from Whiskey Talk for Sports Radio 610, Sean Pendergast's event, and we had kind of a roundtable. Lopez seems to believe that there's a possibility that CJ Stroud could be the guy. I don't know what he's basing that on, but Lopez seems to think that there's a little bit of a chance. I think he threw out a percentage. I think the percentage was 60-40. So he was leaning towards CJ Stroud. We'll see what happens tomorrow when he wakes up. 10 a.m. First segment's going to be interesting. We'll hear what Lopez has to say about that. But he seemed a little bit intrigued by it. I think they're going to trade back, or I think they're going to go defense. Houston Sports is asking, why would I be that surprised if it were Stroud? Really, nothing would surprise me at this point because it is the draft, and we don't know how much D'Amico. Function, you're crazy, man. Oh, Lord. But we don't know what D'Amico is and how good he is at throwing stuff out there and stuff. But I would just be surprised if it were CJ Stroud. But who knows? Expect the unexpected, right? Listen to what Cason's saying. Like, subscribe, all that type of stuff. Matt says me and Lopez are right about stuff 20% of the time. I'd say I'm right a little bit more than 20%. There's some times I'm wrong. I just don't get credit when I'm right, and I don't really ask for credit when I'm right. If you notice that, there's not a lot of times that I get credit for it. I'd say I'm a little more than 20%. I would say I'm a little more than 20%. That's pretty harsh, Matt. But as far as draft stuff, who knows? Who knows, man? Shout out to everyone that was out at the event. Shout out to Matt. He was at Whiskey Talk. Who is going to be at the draft party? We're going to hear from CJ Stroud in a second, but let me know if you're going to be at the draft party. I'm going to be out there. I just talked to Sean. I'm going to roll up there with Sean tomorrow. This is going to be a real exciting event. Who's all going to be at the draft party tomorrow? Because I think it's going to be a pretty deep thing. If you're going to be out there, come by, say hi. And we'll have some fun. It's going to be a fun time. Presented by Modelo, I guess. I got those new Modelo beers. I actually got a couple cases that I'm not even using, but they're like small cans and they're like 90 carb Modelo beers. That I'm sure that's going to be one of their main things. But if you're going, come by, say hi. It's at the Miller Outdoor Theater, and it's a good time. They had it last year. We'll be back this year, and it's going to be really, really fun. Miller Outdoor Theater. I think that's what it's called. So we'll see what happens. Let's hear from CJ Stroud. CJ, we've heard all the talks about the S2 score. We've heard the talks about the stock falling. This was CJ Stroud talking about the tests and all that type of stuff. And I want you guys to tell me, do you think that CJ Stroud did a good job of clapping back? Because I have thoughts on this. I have not been, I've told y'all many times, I don't know what the hell the S2 is. I don't know what the test is. A lot of people seem to be experts about it now. I don't know what it is. I was a Bryce Young is the only one that I would take at number one guy. I think there's questions about the Ohio State system. There's questions about, how much you had to do, how that translates to the NFL. It's the same questions that a lot of people have when they start breaking down quarterbacks. I think there was selective instincts with CJ Stroud. I'm not as big on CJ Stroud, but the S2 test never really stuck out to me. But I want y'all to tell me, how do you think CJ did for himself on this clapback?
I'm not a test taker, so I play football for me. But at the end of the day, man, I don't got nothing to prove to nobody, so I'm not going to sit here and explain how I process football. The people who are making the picks know what I can do. So that's all that matters to me. There's a whole bunch of people who know how to coach better, know how to play quarterback better, know how to do everything on social media, but a man in the arena, that's what's tough, is stepping in the arena 10 toes. So, and I'm going to stand on that. And I know what I can do. I know I can process well. I know if I'm not the smartest quarterback in this draft, I know I'm one of the smartest quarterbacks in the NFL when I step in there tomorrow. So I have that confidence in myself, and I don't think you can play at Ohio State and not be smart. So I don't got nothing to prove to nobody, man. At the end of the day, if you don't trust and believe in me, all I can tell you is watch this.
What's your interaction?
All right, there you go. So there's the CJ Stroud. I didn't think it was that good. I don't think it was like the worst. There's a certain level of innocence with CJ Stroud that I think is kind of likable. Seems like a really good young man. I just don't. I mean, I don't. So is he acknowledging the test? Is he saying that the test doesn't matter? Is he saying it's irrelevant? Is he like what? I'm not sure what exactly he was trying to do. But the other thing about CJ is that, like, I think we kind of saw it with the Watson thing, like during the off-field stuff, where I don't think he really necessarily handled handled the PR as well as he should have. But CJ's in a weird spot. He's having to answer questions about stuff like that. I thought less would have been more in that situation. But who knows? We'll see what happens with CJ. So a lot of people still holding off hope that CJ is the guy. I've been pretty emphatic. I don't think that's the case. How will the fan base feel about that? Who knows? I'm intrigued. I don't want to put his take out there too much. I'm intrigued to hear how Lopez presents it on the air tomorrow at 10 a.m. Is he going to bring you all that smoke? Because there was a little bit of push tonight, but I don't want to, I don't want him to like sleep and then cool off or something like that. And me, like, although y'all know how I am on here, it's 100% like honest on this, like just off for better or worse off the top of the dome. But we'll see what Lopez or hear what Lopez has to say about this tomorrow. Adam Schefter put out a tweet as well that I thought was really, really, I don't want to say interesting. It was borderline predictable. And I don't want to say it's like one of those planted things. But Adam Schefter said that, quote, while Houston hasn't received much trade action so far for the number 2 pick, the Texans have explored the idea of moving off their second first-round pick, the number 12 overall selection. Texans have made calls about moving back in round 1 and also moving back up. So could this be a message to teams like Washington or Minnesota, the teams that, maybe need a quarterback and maybe would like to trade up to a quarterback, to where if one of those quarterbacks is there at 12, then maybe the Texans are just putting it out there that, hey, we're willing to trade back from 12. Because I could see 12. I could see a situation where they trade up at 12. I could also see the trade back. But that one just seemed a little bit Is that the right way to say it? A little bit That's a little too planted. I mean, do you think that's kind of like a telegraph plant? Because the Texans have been pretty tight-lipped. But Adam Schefter, 24 hours before, the Texans are willing to trade 12. They haven't gotten much calls on 2, but they're willing to trade 12. What does that tell you? Who the hell knows at this point? We've all got cabin fever. Drove to the Woodlands this morning to talk about this thing. Then drove out to the distillery. Then we're here. Who the hell knows at this point? Who the hell really knows? That just seemed a little bit planted. If you ask me, just a little bit planted. So we heard from Stroud. The Will Anderson thing is something else that's getting really interesting. If I had a gun to my head right now, and Frankston's asking if I'm drunk right now. I didn't have a single drink. I'm a little bit worn out. I did not have a single drink. Will Anderson and the Tyree Wilson shift. If I had a gun to my head right now, I would bet on Will Anderson being the number 1 pick. You know what? BrownChubbyBear has all these hot takes. I'm gonna try to get BrownChubbyBear in here. I want to get this crazy ass dude in here. BrownChubbyBear. I think he just streamed. I don't think he sleeps. I think he's like sleep deprived. I'm gonna send him, DM him a message. I just want to get, because with the craziness, what better person to have on during the craziness than the craziest dude? Now, Matt might be onto something. Matt might have a decent idea. But if I had a gun to my head, I would bet on Will Anderson being the pick right now. With where I'm at, I would bet on Will Anderson. I mean, it could be a number of guys, but if I had to bet, I would say Will. As far as a trade up, maybe if Wilson falls, if there's an Anderson fall, maybe they want to hop up and get Bijan or Jackson Smith and Jigba. But I would definitely bet on Will Anderson. That would be my bet. Don't know what kind of odds I get. And Randall says, I hope you're wrong. Hey, it'll happen in the draft. Everybody's going to be wrong. I do find it really strange, and I don't know when this happened or how it happened or anything like that. I find it just really strange that Will Anderson is all of a sudden getting nitpicked this way. I mean, if you're a college football fan, and I'm assuming that most of y'all are, doesn't it kind of seem like we've been talking about Will Anderson for 3 years? Someone's asking if I'm going to have anyone on tomorrow night. Yeah, I'm going to have as many people on as possible. All hands will be on deck. So what's going to happen? I'm going to go to the draft. After the draft, we're going to stream. We're going to live stream after the draft. Absolutely. You think I wouldn't do that? Absolutely. After the picks are made, you're damn right I'll be streaming. I'll be inviting anyone and everyone in this mofo. Promise you that. I'll try to get as many people as I can here for that. So yeah, that's going to be a big stream tomorrow. But do you not find it weird, like how Will Anderson is getting talked about? Like, does it not kind of feel like Aiden Hutchinson last year a little bit, where this guy has this pedigree? You talk about the guy for a couple of years, all he does is produce, and then all of a sudden we're questioning his explosiveness, his athleticism, and we're saying, oh, well, this guy has a longer wingspan, and this guy can sit at the podium and reach across and touch media members on the head. So, hey, let's take this defensive lineman instead of Will Anderson. Does it not seem like we're kind of doing that again? I am terrified of Tyree Wilson. I don't know. This has not been the case for a while, but at 2, I am terrified of Tyree Wilson for a number of reasons. Number one, and I like him. I saw him up close and personal. I know what Tyree Wilson can do when he can go. But he had 1 year. He had 1 year. Will Anderson had 3. We're talking about measurables like we were last year with Travon Walker. I thought Hutchinson was the right pick. And we're talking about injury concerns again. This would be the second time in as many years that you take a guy with injury concerns. I don't love it. I'm naturally scared about the Texans. I'm terrified of Tyree Wilson. Freaking terrified. Need D'Amico to talk me off a ledge. It's a crazy time, though. That's why I got the craziest guy of all. BrownChubbyBear. What the hell are you doing, man?
What's going on, bro?
When do you sleep, bro?
Almost never.
Yeah, what is going on? What is going on with you inside your mind? We've been here. We've talked Caleb Williams. We've talked all this. What is BrownChubbyBear? What is BrownChubbyBear? What's going through your mind right now, leading up to the draft? I need the real crazy point of view of BrownChubbyBear. Like, are you going to be able to sleep tonight?
Probably not. But no, I mean, I'm thinking that ownership. I know you disagree, but I think ownership is pacing around saying, "Hey, we don't want the same thing to happen last year." I remember when I was going to games, there was no Texans fans around me. Crenshaw was saying the same thing, especially that Chiefs game. I think that as much as it is a football decision, it's also a business decision. It's an ego decision. And I think that we could see a last minute thing that, we do take CJ Stroud. I think that's perhaps one of the reasons why Daniel Jeremiah came up with that mock.
So is that your hope? You want CJ Stroud?
I mean, that I want AR more, but I don't think we have a chance in hell of drafting him. I mean, he didn't come down for a visit. It was impossible, I think, to take someone that you haven't had for a visit as your franchise quarterback. So I think he's completely out of the discussion. I don't think it's going to be Levis.
I think they're going to pass on him twice and piss you off. That's what I think is going to happen, and I'm here for that. I'm here for that. I think they're going to pass on him twice. I think AR-15 gets passed on twice.
I agree. I don't think they are viewing AR as a prospect at all. I think they don't think Levis is a prospect at all. I think it really was from the beginning, Bryce or CJ, and that's it.
What else is on your mind, man?
What else is on my mind is I think that we're going to see quite a bit of trades, and I'm just hoping that they're wins. The past two drafts, I don't know if you would call those trades wins. Right, with Nico Collins, we gave up 2 fourths and a fifth. We gave up a decent amount to get Mechie. We traded down for Kenyon Green, and we saw the season he had. So my biggest issue is I don't want him to try to be the smartest man in the room. Like, do it doesn't. Some of this is not rocket science. Like, I understand there's evaluations and he knows hell of a lot more than I'll ever know. But I mean, it's not necessary.
Who is he?
Nick Caserio.
You sure? Oh.
Maybe not.
I was talking about Nick today, and I know you're. What do you call him, Pope Nick or something? What of your many crazy rants? You call him Pope Nick, right?
The infallible Pope Nick.
Okay. See, I was talking about Nick today, and I said that it could be the strawberry chewers like final draft. And my thing is, like, it's just common sense. Like, I don't know if it's a rift. I just think it's common sense. Like, at some point the coach wants to figure something out. And my thing with like Nick Caserio is the Browns had like 3 GMs during their like rock bottom up to trying to get there. So they had Sashi Brown, they had John Dorsey, and then they went to the next guy. So it's not uncommon where you're trying to, figure some stuff out. But my thing was this, like, what's so great about Nick to where that would be like a big, like, oh no, like I'm not saying like, obviously, like at the start of a season, you don't want to lose your general manager, but even if you can appreciate that Nick has gotten you through salary cap hell, he deserves all the credit in the world for getting you through the Watson thing. But like, if you found out after the season, okay, Nick Caserio's gone, like, what would make you say, oh no, this is the end of the world? Like, oh God, we can't afford that.
I think some people just don't want instability. I think that's really what it is. Not exactly whether it's Nick Caserio, you could replace him with another name. I think whoever the GM was, honestly, I think people are going to gravitate towards because we've had so much instability just over the last couple of years. But I agree with you. I mean, in my opinion, his biggest win was the Deshaun Watson trade. But, if you ask me, his draft selections, they're mediocre.
TBD at best.
Yeah, exactly. TBD or mediocre. And at the same time, everyone says he got us out of cap hell. Well, it's not hard to realize that who you got to cut and just wait until the dead cap goes away. Like, the guy's not a genius for that. Yeah,
I'm with you, BCB. You're a lot more calm than I thought you'd be. I'm gonna let you go. I wanted you like cussing and screaming and stuff. This is not what I imagined, man. You might be a Twitter gangster at this point, man.
It depends on the day.
What are you doing for the draft tomorrow? You going to the party?
No, I was supposed to be in KC actually, but I had medical concern. I passed out, so I can't travel right now. So I'm stuck. But I'll be live streaming.
What'd you pass out? Were you mad about the Texans?
No, I'm anemic, so it happens from time to time.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I'm sure that did help. This is what the Texans do to me. So,
okay.
But
be safe, man.
I will.
All right, brother. Appreciate you.
All right, thanks. I'll go back to watching you.
All right, there's my guy BCB right there, man. Die Hard right there. Check out his stuff as well. Drop it in the comments. BCB, let them know where they can look at your stuff. I think he had Matt Miller on. He's been doing his thing, man. Him and his boys do their thing. And I will say this, like, some people, I've talked to some people, like some fans and some friends, and they're like, yeah, BCB's crazy. I'm like, no shit. Like, yeah, he's a man now. I mean, fans are crazy. That's my guy right there. But yeah, that's where we're at. We'll see what happens with the Caserio picks. I will say this though, and I think we gotta kind of like be fair. Last year when Caserio was coming in, when we were coming in, we felt a little bit better about Nick, and this is kind of like reflective of the roller coaster of the Texans. Like last year, we were saying, man, Nick Caserio's first draft, despite not having a first or a second round pick, was phenomenal. Look at what these guys did. Look at Davis Mills. Look at all this hope for Nico Collins. Look at this hope. Look at Roy Lopez. Roy Lopez did his thing. Oh, Garrett Wallow, he's going to be better. And none of the guys produced. I don't blame him for the Mills pick. Like, I'm not a guy who like blames Nick Caserio I don't even blame him for the Culley hire. I don't blame him for the Lovey hire. I was fine with that, with where they were in that process. I'm cool with that. Mills, 3rd round pick, worth kicking the tires. So I had no issue with that. But I did not have that's Wild Thing Music says that was paid promotion. No, I like BCB, man. That one, he didn't even know that was coming. That's my guy right there. That's hilarious. It's not like that. I wanted to get BCB on because he's the crazy fan. But look, that's the internet right there. My man BCB seems like he's losing his mind on the internet. And you look at him, he's like he's a wise fella. That's just kind of how he rolls. I'm gonna try to get Mike Meltzer in here. Mike Meltzer was the voice of the people that wanted a quarterback. And he needed some therapy last week. So we'll see if we can get some Melty therapy here. It seems like a lot of people need therapy. Doesn't seem like BCB does. BCB seems straight. But we'll find out if Mike Meltzer is in the right mindset or not. He's probably got dark lights on like a creep right now. I don't even turn on any light or anything like that, if I had to guess. I mean, this guy, this effing guy. Goodness gracious. By the way, Meltz, I was telling a story. Matt was at Whiskey Talk, and I was talking to Matt, and I told him, I said, yeah, he was talking about like, what's it like working with Meltz? I'm tweeting out that you're on right now. So, I was like, man, me and Meltzer had a daily argument because he was like, man, he was doing law school and coming in and doing morning radio. I was like, yeah. And I was like, but there was one thing that pissed me off constantly about Mike Meltzer, and it was so annoying to me. And for some reason, I think he just started liking it. What do you think this was? But look at you, Dart. Why do you look like a creep, man?
So random Mike Meltzer story. I rebuilt this computer I'm on now, and it's worked out fantastically. I don't know why I'm so dark. It's like I have a lights on. I have say that again.
Are the lights on?
Yeah, the lights are on. That's I have my light on. I have one of those like ring lights behind me. I don't know why it's this dark. It's very bizarre.
Creep, dude. God, the creepy Meltzer. No, but what was our biggest argument about that used to just really take me off?
The fact that I sipped my coffee slowly in the morning.
And you were the most non-morning person ever. God. So What do you think about right now? Obviously, it's a gradual process. You were whining for a quarterback the other day. Where's your mind at right now for the Texans as we head into the draft party tomorrow?
I'm in a weird mindset, man, because ultimately, I was thinking about this today. What would have made sense the whole offseason is if they were like, hey, we're fine with 1 or 2 quarterbacks, whether it's Bryce Young or CJ Stroud, we'll just end up with the one who falls. But because we've had all of these rumors, and I know that there's some segment of the fan base that's like, why is everyone freaking out? Why is everyone worried before anything actually happens? But I think the reason why is if they loved CJ Stroud, then we'd be sitting here like it's 2016 and it's Goff and Mariota, or Goff and Wentz, or the year that Jameis and Mariota, and you knew quarterbacks were going 1-2, and we'd be sitting here calm, being like, hey, even though they didn't get Bryce, they like the other guy. But the fact that we've had all these discussions about what they do at quarterback, now it's I really like CJ Stroud. And I am now in a position because that's what I would have done. That's who I would have picked. Now I'm in this bizarre situation where I need to try to figure out what I want because it seems like they don't want what I want. So what I would tell you is, yes.
So you're basically just okay. Yeah, I know. I think that's normal for the draft. I think typically you say what you want, and then. Well, the other thing is they've done dumb stuff. So
yes,
whether it's these
I
guys
don't trust
or not,
them.
they've done dumb stuff.
I don't trust them is one thing. here's what I could live with. I could live with them drafting Will Anderson and then Bijan Robinson and trading for Trey Lance. I could live with that. I could live with that if they did something like that. I'm just, the one I've had a hard time wrapping my mind around is Will Levis, because I don't like the prospect a lot. And while the idea of, okay, well, let's do something like this. Let's say they go Tyree Wilson and Bijan Robinson, or Tyree Wilson and Jackson Smith and Jigba, and then they trade up to get Hendon Hooker in the first round. Here's what I want to know if they do that. If they trade back up in the first round for Hendon Hooker, what I want to know is, are they doing that out of conviction? Is that what they are convinced is the best thing in the interests of the franchise? Or are they doing that? Are they doing it to placate me or other people?
You know who I'm on board with right now? I'm a Jake Hainer guy at this point.
Oh my God.
I knew this is no, man. I want to pass on a quarterback, but if in the third round or something like that, you want to get Jake Hainer, I'm okay with Jake Hainer. Okay. I'm okay with him in that area, the unrealized potential, the it factor, all that, and not being committed to a quarterback in the long term. So yes, I'm good. I'm good with a little Jake Hainer, and you can still trade for Trey Lance. But
you could.
With the extra picks, I would not mind a Jake Hainer.
All right, so you're going to draft a 6'1", 201-pound quarterback who was very productive at Fresno. Is this like a Tom Brady plan? Is that what this is?
I don't know if it's a Tom Brady plan. I think it's a Kyle Shanahan plan.
Jake Hainer. Well, it's a hard sell. I think a lot of it comes down to what they do in the first round. Like, I'm curious, like, how upset people would be if they just take Tyree Wilson over Will Anderson. I know that's become more of a fractured discussion because there's the feeling that, like, oh, maybe Anderson has reached his ceiling. He's a try-hard guy. He's a high-effort guy. Wilson more fits the mold. If he reaches his potential, then watch out. But I tend to think on balance, because of the production, the pedigree, that if they drafted Will Anderson, I think people, depending on what they do at quarterback, can at least say, hey, they have a solid building block in this player.
What is going on with people acting like Will Anderson sucks now?
Like, I don't get it. I don't get it.
Look, of all the things, like, and I'm not sitting here saying that you got to say the guy's effing Nick Bosa or that he's like J.J. Watt or Myles Garrett, but why all of a sudden does Will Anderson suck? Like,
I don't get it.
It reminds me of last year where, like, Aiden Hutchinson was this productive guy for 3 years, and we were talking about how good he was, and then all of a sudden we tried to find a reason, or the Jags tried to find a reason to not pick him, and it's Travon Walker. And I feel like Tyree Wilson is kind of serving that role now. And just like it did with Aiden Hutchinson, I think if you pass on Will Anderson for Tyree Wilson, I would be terrified. I would be terrified of that.
I'd be worried about it too, especially because of the Stingley pick last year. And I don't think Stingley's a bad player, but you got to, like, hope and pray that this guy stays healthy for, like, the next 7 years. And at some point, even if hitting a double at number 2 is not ideal for this franchise, they need some doubles.
Well, they need some doubles, and I don't like. I'm not, like, sitting here saying, like, if the problem for me is, and I think it's kind of like a shift, and it goes back to that positional value crap that people talk about too much. Is like, okay, because this is what you want. I know you want, just like, you don't even, like, necessarily want to agree, but you want to understand, like, the line of thinking in the past to where I can at least, like, try to make sense and see where they're coming from, whether I agree or not. That's what you want.
Absolutely. That's what I want. So yes.
If you're telling me that you're not going to take a quarterback because you don't think these guys warrant being selected, and you don't want to kick the tires on Will Levis, you don't want to kick the tires on Anthony Richardson because they're projects, and you don't want to take C.J. Stroud, who's a little bit accomplished, because of question marks or whatever, and you then shift that discussion to edge guys, and all of a sudden you're wanting to swing for the fences with Tyree Wilson instead of taking Will Anderson, I'm confused. Landry,
I'm also with you. Like, I follow this stuff closely. So Will Anderson burst onto the scene in 2021, there were some that said in the media that, oh, Aiden Hutchinson only got invited to the Heisman because he played at Michigan and there's some sort of national bias. The real guy who should have been invited to the Heisman Trophy presentation in 2021 when Bryce Young won it was actually Will Anderson. He had more tackles for loss. I think he had more sacks. That's the guy. When we talk about the draft last year, about this year's draft, people talk Will Anderson. Now, and this was not a February conversation. This was not a March conversation. This is like the last 2 weeks, and people are like, hey, this guy's a try hard. He tries hard. He's not that big. Doesn't have a lot of moves. Not explosive. He's built like Von Miller, but he's nowhere near as athletic as he is. Like, where was this the last 2 years? He's been one of the best players in college football the last 2 years. Where was this discussion?
I can understand a lot of these discussions. Like I know some people hate them, but I love them. I love this stuff. I just can't understand all of a sudden Will Anderson sucks. I don't know. Like for 3 years, I feel like I've been counting down this day and saying, oh, that's a top 2 pick right there. Like I feel like I've been saying that since I first watched him as a freshman when they said, oh, this is going to be the best defensive player that Nick Saban's ever had. And then every time I watched him, he produces. And now all of a sudden he produces, but he doesn't do this or he can't do that. And he might, the upside might not be there. It's confusing to me. It's confusing to me, the Will Anderson thing.
It is very confusing. I apologize if I lost you. It is extremely confusing to me. Very confusing to me.
Now, the other thing that we're talking about now is the potential trades. That Adam Schefter story just seems like a perfectly planted like type of story where they're open to trade 12 or trade up, and maybe they're set at 2. I don't, it's kind of the final night of noise. That one felt a little bit planted there.
Yeah, I didn't really know what to make of it because relative to the number 12 pick, right? Like that's not a surprise. They could move up, they could move down. They've explored moving in both directions, number 12. Like I could have told you that. You don't need sources around the NFL to indicate that. So I'm wondering when Schefter kind of randomly tweets that, is the intent to drum up interest for the number 2 pick? Because I feel like we already knew at number 12, just kind of inherently, they have the agility to move up or down depending on what they want to do. Like, is that more about 2 than 12? Because that's not news about 12.
Yeah, I think it could be either one. I don't know. Like, are they focused on either pick? I didn't tell you this, and I can't wait to see your reaction on this. I think he's going to say something about it on the air tomorrow, but we had whiskey talk today. So, I mean, it was said in front of a group of people. You're already laughing.
Okay. I'm intrigued right now.
Lopez seems to think Stroud's in play, and he said he would give it a 60% chance that they take Stroud.
Lopez said that?
Yeah.
Is that based on anything recent?
I don't know. I mean, it's just, I think it's definitely what we're starting the show with. But Lopez has a 60% feeling on CJ Stroud right now.
Why is it that I want to get this right? Because you would have this. Did Jonathan Alexander tweet something to the effect of like, hey, the Texans are looking more deeply into Stroud and they're like digging around. It was like something like that, right?
Yeah.
Like, so what? I don't understand what that means. Like, they've been scouting these players for 3.5 months, if not longer. And now this week it's like, hey, we got to dig in on CJ Stroud.
Like sometimes I feel like these guys are getting effed with. I don't know what that means. Like, did they, maybe it's that they know that they have a possibility of getting a franchise quarterback, and the closer that it comes to making the decision, the more you want to cram and make sure it's the right choice. Like maybe that's what it means. But if you're having these kind of doubts, I mean, I at this point, I don't know what it says, because San Francisco, D'Amico and Slowick have been in a situation where they passed on Mahomes and Watts and really just dismissed their ass in the second round. And it wasn't them, but it was San Francisco. And then where they took Trey Lance over Fields and Mac Jones. So I don't know. Maybe there's just like extra cramming going on. Maybe they just want to make sure that this is the right choice, and they're trying to do as much digging as possible.
Here's what else I wonder about, and it's not a popular thing to mention because of what people think about him, but is there any evidence that having David Mulligetta push a franchise to be as good as it can be with one of his quarterbacks is inherently some bad thing. Like, other than people acting like Deshaun Watson is a worse individual than like Hitler
Wait,
or
so
Pol Pot.
you're saying that you think that the Mulligetta thing's a factor?
I don't know. I'm asking in a vacuum, like, is it a bad thing if your franchise quarterback is a David Mulligetta guy and you know, hey, I got to be on my P's and Q's to make sure that this guy's going to want to stay? Because I know people hate Deshaun Watson, but there's been no evidence to date that Deshaun Watson's trade request was the incorrect football move. Emphasis on football.
Well, I don't think the Mulligetta thing is an issue. I think they're more than willing to work with Mulligetta. I think if they pass on Stroud, it doesn't have anything to do with the Mulligetta thing.
That's fair.
The Deshaun trade, I said from the beginning, and I was saying this when we were covering everything, dude, I wouldn't want to be here if Jack Easterby was here either. So
correct.
Like, I don't blame him, and I don't think they hold it against him. I don't think that's anything that would keep them from drafting CJ. I'm hoping tomorrow he doesn't sleep on it, but 60-40 was what we were at last night.
It's just weird. Like, I have to say, I've been following the draft for a long time, and obviously a large part of this opinion has to do with me living in Houston now, but this has been the weirdest process I have seen in my life. This has been the weirdest pre-draft I've ever seen. I've never seen anything like this, Landry.
And I almost wonder, like, is the NFL just starting to know how to F with us perfect? Because is this just like another way in which the NFL is just doing everything so much better than every other league? Because the speculation, like, there's even people, and I don't want to say there's a lot, there's even people saying, well, Carolina might not take Bryce Young.
Yeah.
It's like,
well, I think it's a few things. Like, they obviously, the NFL has made it known to these teams, like, we don't want you to announce in advance at all who the number one pick is going to be. Now, when it's Trevor Lawrence, it's basically like, there's no, like, it's going to be next year most likely. Like, we know who the number one pick's going to be. They'll talk around it. It'll be announced. But, like, I think because the NFL wants all the suspense, I think in a year like this where, let's be honest, the draft is not nearly as talented and you have a lot of uncertainty, it has led to, like, basically chaos where nobody has any idea what's going to happen less than 24 hours out.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, the Texans are going to have 2 picks next year, and if they don't have a quarterback, is this just going to be the same thing? Because I'm fine with it. I mean, it is exhausting. I am ready for some clarity.
Hope. Yes.
Yeah, but
well, how would you feel about the, like, one of the defensive players, Bijan or JSN at 12, and then they trade up for Hendon
at 2 at this point?
Okay. But I wanted to get to the part
today. Wade Smith said it yesterday too.
He'd be fine with Bijan at 2.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think about trading up for Hendon Hooker? Like, in the back half of
Jalen Carter at 2 too.
That's another thing I was thinking about. If Jalen Carter had no off-field issues, would they draft him at 2?
Well, my problem is this, and it's not necessarily a problem. It's more of a question. It's more of an observation. And the Bijan stuff, just go listen to In the Loop if y'all want to talk about, if y'all want to hear, like, the data, because there's a lot of things that people say about running backs that just isn't true. And I think I got into it today. Just fire up the Odyssey app, go to the 11 a.m. We laid it out. The Jalen Carter thing is interesting because let's say that we got to pretend that they believe that his off-field stuff, it's not, maybe there's a little bit of immaturity or something. And again, I don't know, but they're not like deal breaking types of things that are like, he's off our draft board. If DeMeco Ryans is like this awesome, charismatic, like, leader of men, and he has all these intangibles and everybody gravitates towards him, and, he's the cap and he's captain and all that type of stuff. And I believe he is. I think you can feel that. I haven't met anyone that has said anything different than that. Then shouldn't you be the perfect place to be willing to take on a Jalen Carter? Like, shouldn't that asset and that skill, like, be something to where you're willing to take on a young man that's not a finished product? Because if not, what good is it? Like if you're expecting 21-year-olds, and this is what the Texans were in the BOB thing, let's just be real. If you're expecting 21-year-olds to have 35-year-old maturity levels or stuff like that, then cool. Like that's fine. But are you wasting the skills of someone like DeMeco Ryans, who said in his press conference, I like to coach him hard and I like to love him hard? Shouldn't, with DeMeco Ryans' skills, if they love Jalen Carter, and let's pretend that it's not like some deal breaker thing, but he's just an immature kid, which I was at 21. I don't even want to say what they would be saying about me as a draft prospect at 21. I'd cringe at it. But shouldn't DeMeco Ryans make it more possible for you to take on guys that maybe aren't finished products, that maybe have maturity issues or whatever?
Yeah, I think it's a very fair point. It just, being here for the last nearly 13 years, it would fly in the face of almost everything that they have done. I agree with you in theory. Like if you have this stable situation, it's not like we're in Los Angeles or, New York, where there might be all these temptations or whatever. Like I think Houston's a pretty easy place for professional athletes to live in. That's why so many do it. And if you have the right coach and the right infrastructure, yeah. I mean, listen, he was on the best team in college football the last 2 years. They found a way to deal with him. And they found a way on the field to maximize him at his respective ages. So do with that what you will, I suppose. It seems to me like that's an ideal fit in Seattle. I think that's what's going to end up happening. But it is an interesting question, sort of in a vacuum, like why not Jalen Carter, given all these questions we have? The quarterback, Tyree Wilson and production, Tyree Wilson and his foot, Will Anderson and his upside. We haven't spent really any time talking about Jalen Carter.
No, we haven't. And it's just weird because the weirdest thing about it with me, with Jalen Carter, and there's people on here saying he's the next Albert Haynesworth. I hope you're saying that as a good thing, because dude was a pretty effing good player before he went to Washington. But the thing about Jalen Carter that really, and again, it's mock drafts and it's just BS, but like, it almost seems like it's a foregone conclusion. Oh, well, Seattle's just going to get him at 5. It's not like, oh, is he going to fall out of the top 10? It seems like it's just like, oh yeah, Seattle's going to get him at 5 and Pete Carroll's going to love it. And he's going to go to Seattle and it's just like, no big deal. That's what it seems like. It seems like all the mock, like he's going to Seattle and it's just like, okay, so his concerns can't be that bad. If we're just, is everybody just basically saying, well, Pete Carroll's the only guy who can get the most out of the guy who everyone was saying is the best player in the draft for like months. And Pete Carroll's the only guy who can tolerate the most talented player in the draft who has a little bit of character issues, and nobody else can do it. Nobody else can handle that. Even teams that don't need quarterbacks can't do that. Is that where we're at right now with Jalen Carter?
Well, think about it. I mean, think about it. I haven't even I haven't studied the Arizona defensive line, but Arizona lost JJ. They lost Zach Allen.
Chandler Jones 2 years ago.
Yeah, they might be the worst team in football heading into the season. I don't see anybody mocking Jalen Carter to Arizona. Now, part of that is because they want to trade the pick ostensibly, but now it's like maybe not conventional wisdom, but now it wouldn't be a surprise to see Paris Johnson out of Ohio State go number 3. I never thought of this guy as like an Orlando Pace kind of prospect, but that's where he may end up being picked. Nobody's even having Jalen Carter at number 3 for a team that has all sorts of needs all over the place. You're right. I think we've just kind of all mentally put Carter in Seattle, with the only question being, maybe do they go with a Stroud or Richardson if they fall there? But it seems like defensively, because Pete Carroll has worked with these kind of guys at USC and with Seattle, it's the perfect fit.
Do you think that, and this is a hell of a comparison by Matt Perez, this is actually excellent. He could be the next Warren Sapp if he doesn't get in any more off-field trouble. Perfect comparison.
I would say generally yes. I don't know that he's quite deep.
Warren Sapp was weed.
I don't know that Jalen Carter quite has the pass rushing upside of Warren Sapp, but as far as overall potential, yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, as far as just falling and everyone knows he's awesome, but he just falls and then he gets in the right situation. I think that's what he's referring to. Do you think, I heard this theory and subscribe, appreciate everyone for rolling through. Draft will be tomorrow, and we will get some clarity. Which one was it? It was Andrew Brandt Kyle Brandt, not Andrew Brandt.
Very different.
Very, very different. One's entertaining and one's not. The entertaining one, Kyle Brandt, was on Good Morning Football, and he was talking about the draft. And his frustration was with the CJ Stroud talk, much like we were talking about the Will Anderson and Jalen Carter. And he thinks that if the NFL draft were like the NBA draft, and it was like right after the season, that the picks would be better.
Dude, Landry.
People are just starting to like think too much. He thinks the picks would be better.
I tweeted this actually 3 hours ago, and because I was thinking about it. You and I have talked about this before. Noah Ruggles is Ohio State's kicker, right? Noah Ruggles missed a field goal attempt at the Horn, literally midnight Eastern, heading into 2023. If Noah Ruggles makes that kick, I think CJ Stroud is a lock to go in the top 3 because they were going to beat TCU.
Top 3. Why?
Number 2.
National champ.
People see on that stage. It would, like, everybody knows CJ played great against Georgia, but it would have been the cherry on top because he led the game-winning drive that ended up with the game-winning field goal against Georgia in Atlanta. It would have been like the cherry on top. Like, it would have put a nice bow on it, and then they would have rolled past TCU. That's number 1. Or number 2, Daniel Jeremiah, I believe, during the Combine said, CJ Stroud put on the best throwing display I've ever seen at the Combine. Now, I realize the process isn't over by that point. You have all those, in-person visits, pro days, the interviews, most importantly. But I believe this, Landry. If the draft was on February 20th or whatever, right after the Combine is, I think CJ Stroud would have been a top 3 pick. I think on this player, and really? I know there are probably people like Lance Zierlein who would say I'm wrong about this.
So why didn't it stop Bryce Young? Because Bryce Young, they missed a field goal against Tennessee.
Yeah, but I think he's a better prospect ultimately, and Carolina fell in love with him. I just think with CJ, because of the kind of prospect he is, because with CJ, it's like you look at him and you're like, well, he's 6'3", he's got a good arm, he's really accurate. Like, what are we missing here? I think that with him, with this whole, the obvious thing would be the S2 score, like if that didn't exist, and just how long these teams have to analyze it. Like, I'm convinced, I am convinced that if the draft were in January or February, I think he would go higher. And maybe he'll go number 2 tomorrow. Who knows? But if he falls to like number 8, I will be 98% convinced he would have gone higher had one of those things happened. Noah Ruggles makes the kick, or the draft is just earlier.
Yeah, who knows? Fantasy Life says, after months of meaningless speculation and wild scenarios, I don't think it's meaningless. There are wild scenarios.
I think it means everything.
Yeah, it's fun. I'll be the happiest SOB when the draft is over and 6'10" talent can start hyping up an overrated 5-win 2023 squad team. Truth.
Overrated?
I want to put you in timeout, little Fantasy Life, not because you talked crap, but because anyone who puts truth at the end of their tweet is a weirdo. Truth, fact, real talk, real D's nuts. Sit your ass in timeout.
Who is overrating the Texans? Like, I don't think the haters, the lovers, I don't think anyone is doing that. I don't think anyone's doing that.
Mitchell says, if Stroud came out of Texas, Landry would love him. I'm not sure. I don't know what it's like to have a quarterback that's an NFL prospect. So it's
been a while for me as well. Yes, I feel you about that.
I think I would like him. I wouldn't like him more than Bryce. I can say that. And the reason I like Bijan is because Bijan's awesome. I mean, that's the reality. He's awesome.
Can I interest you in an anti-Bijan Robinson theory from Jason Fitzgerald of Over the Cap?
Yeah, sure.
So his point was like, listen, so the selling point on drafting Bijan Robinson is what you and I have talked about. We've talked about others, which is, all right, you don't need to give him a second contract. You can do 4 years plus a 50-year option plus, the franchise tag. His point was, but what that running back should do is if he's really good, then he has every incentive in the world to hold out before his third or fourth season.
Yeah.
And then
all running backs should hold out after 3 years.
And then if he's really good, if he is as good as you and I think he is, the team's going to have a lot of pressure, like Zeke, to give him the second contract, and then it's a disaster. So in a perfect world, these guys are all robots. You can be like, hey, 4 years. Here's your 5th year. Maybe we'll throw in a franchise tag. But because of the economic realities, if they hold out, as they should under that hypothetical, then you're either more likely to give him that challenging second contract or be forced to trade him. That was an interesting counter argument.
Who cares if it happens, it happens. It's just fun. It's hilarious because you hear this talk about running backs. You don't take them because they're going to get a second. You don't want to, they're not going to get a second contract. And well, less than half in the last 10 years of rookies that were up for their deal per over the cap, they don't get a second deal. And I think there were 31% from 2011 and 14 from Peter King's column. So who cares? There have been 5 running backs taken the last 10 years in the top 10. 5. There have been 16 running backs taken in the first round. So
yes,
if the percentage is less than half of guys getting not getting second contracts, it's not the running back's fault. Like it's not the running back's fault. The guys that have been taken in the top 5: Leonard Fournette, Zeke Elliott, Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, and Todd Gurley. Those weren't bad picks. They outproduced over half the first rounders. Like, Todd Gurley got hurt. I don't care if he got hurt or not. He was the best player in the damn league for a year.
Yeah, so his point would be Todd Gurley was a good pick, but because he was such a good player, they gave him a big deal, and that was a catastrophe.
Yeah, but was it? Are we saying that about Carson Wentz? I mean,
you could say about Wentz, but Landry, the difference is there's more of a structural reason why it would happen with a running back versus a quarterback. That's the difference. Like, there's no inherent reason it should happen with a quarterback. Yeah,
that's fair. Yeah, they do take more wear and tear. But like Saquon right now, with where they are right now, that they got to the franchise tag point. Whew, I mean,
well, so see, that's the thing. Like, I think that to me, maybe you disagree. I think it's clear that Saquon was the wrong pick at number 2. It's been a week.
Should they have taken Sam Darnold?
Well, I think they should have taken Sam Darnold. Obviously, I was wrong about that. Okay. I was wrong about that.
Baker Mayfield went before him. So he's sandwiched between Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold. Josh Allen went 7, and then Josh Rosen went 10.
Well, so obviously in pure hindsight, they should have taken Josh Allen. But if we're just going position player, then they probably should have taken Bradley Chubb. It's a more impactful position. I'm trying to think what else.
Saquon Barkley made a pretty good impact this year. I don't know if they make.
But again, but think about it. He's basically had 2 good years. Yeah, and he got hurt the other year. So like, this is the number 2 pick in the draft, which the Texans have tomorrow. If you say like, hey guys, here's what's going to happen. You're going to have 2 good years out of the next 4, and the other 2 he'll be either ineffective or hurt. That's not a great next 4 years.
What about Christian? What about Christian McCaffrey?
McCaffrey's worked out very well. Excellent pick.
And yeah, so and I mean, like that's
great pick
overall. Fournette, I mean, look, part of the reason they took Fournette is because they reached on Bortles. I mean, or not reached, they just drafted a quarterback, and then they were just trying to put the perfect structure around him. Did make an AFC championship game. My point is this: let's not judge running backs different than other prospects, and every time they fail, let's not make it about their position. That's my main point. Don't generalize Bijan Robinson and say you don't draft a running back. Like, sometimes there are talents like Saquon Barkley, like Christian McCaffrey, even Zeke. I don't think Zeke was a bad pick. I think it goes back to what you said, the second contract. I'm not disputing the second contract thing. All I'm saying is if we're going to dismiss, and it's right to dismiss because the facts are there, the notion that, somehow you hold it against running backs because they don't get second contracts, when I think 70% of quarterbacks selected in the last 12 years in the first round, they don't get second contracts, then drafting a running back is not the dumbest thing.
Let's put it this way.
It's a made-up reason. Like, it's
the supporting evidence should not be the second contract. The supporting evidence should be other things.
And what you said with like there's a clear, and that was like an enlightening thing. Like what you said, there's like a tangible reason why they get hurt. It's not like some sort of Cooper Kupp wide receiver type of injury, or like a foot injury for an edge guy. I can 100% get down with. The one thing I don't like is how we make stuff up. And the other thing I don't like when it happens with running backs is you point to like Derrick Henry and Nick Chubb went in the second round, and we start going down this list, there's a lot more running backs, so a lot more are going to be in the league, and they're going to get opportunity because of the injuries. But I hate when people start saying, well, Derrick Henry, you can find him in the second. Yeah, because idiots didn't draft him in the first. You're telling me if they redrafted that Derrick Henry and Nick Chubb wouldn't go in the first round?
Yeah, they certainly would. No question about it. I mean, here's where I'm at.
I would get in like a running back rant, but you know how I am with running backs. I feel bad for them, but I understand both sides of things. I understand the business side. The second contract, yeah.
Yeah, they need their own union. That's the bottom line. I would not take Bijan at 2. I would take him at 12. That's where I'm at. I would take him, especially given my overall mental state on this franchise. I would not take him at 2. I would take him at 12.
This is the other stuff. Shout out to H-Town Creole. No disrespect, but they don't have a good enough offensive line to draft a running back in the first. And what should they not draft, a quarterback or a wide receiver? Like, what does that mean?
What are we waiting?
The offensive line is that bad, but what does that mean? They don't have a good enough offensive line to draft a running back?
They have fairly significant investments in 4 of the 5 offensive line spots, and presumably they will add a center at some point by Friday. At some point. Yeah, so what do we? They have the highest paid left tackle in football. They have a first-round pick on a 50-year option at right tackle. They've got an investment in free agency at right guard. They've got a first-round pick at left guard. Like, what are we waiting for here, for God's sake?
No clue. Don't get it. So tomorrow, what are you doing for the draft?
What am I doing? So I'll work tomorrow, and then my plan is to go home. I got the 2 monitors here, and I plan to. Here's what I'm trying to do. I'm going to try to stay off of Twitter, like during the first 2 to 3 picks, because I might want to be surprised at that point.
Okay. There you go.
That's my thought, and then I might go on to kind of see the reaction, what's going on, etc. Because I feel like there'll be some tip picking.
The post-draft stream. Will you come on the post-draft stream?
Absolutely. Tomorrow will be fascinating.
And Mike Meltzer will be angry.
What are the raw odds that we're 0 to 100 that they will have landed a quarterback by this time tomorrow?
Lopez said 60% CJ Stroud. So there you go.
Yes. So 60%, but that's the number 2 pick.
I don't know. We'll see. Who knows? I don't know. Well, we're getting my guy to Fresno State later, so we'll see.
Jake Hainer. Get excited. Season tickets on sale.
There you go. Billboards. Down 59. All right. Appreciate you, man.
Thank you.
All right. There you go. Therapy with Mike Meltzer here in the locker room. Guys, it's bedtime for some of us. It's not bedtime. Who am I kidding? It's time to watch some TV, do some show prep. But when I go to sleep, dog's getting a little excited. When you go to sleep, we'll wake up and it'll be effing draft day. Never thought we would get here. Let's freaking eat. Subscribe, like, appreciate you for riding with me. Tomorrow, there will be a live stream post-draft. I'll be at the draft party. Come by, say hi if you're there. And we're going to talk about this afterwards. It's going to be a packed house. I can guarantee you that. And I appreciate all you for rolling through. Appreciate all the comments. Just remember, when you're commenting, no matter what, don't put truth at the end. Don't put that real talk. Come on, be better than that. And even if you do, we're still in this together.
Yeah, it's the locker room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey, locker room. Yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk, yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize, every angle's what we really do. We the source, we the pulse of the city too. Landlocked, got the game in the headlock. Localize every time, can't stop, won't stop. Yeah, we top 2 and we not 2. Plugged in daily digital on you.